actually spoken the other night.
This video will be on YouTube. So if you have any really bad feelings about YouTube, try to stay out of the way of the camera. It gives me a lot of pleasure this afternoon to introduce Dr. David Rankin, who's been for 9 years at SUNY Fredonia in the political science department. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Before he was here, he received his PhD from the University of California and in Santa Barbara, and his bachelor's degree in political science from the University of California. He has written or been co-author and co-editor of several books, including Transformed by Crisis, The Presidency of George W. Bush and American Politics, and another book, Winning the White House, 2004. At the moment, he's working on a third book, Winning the White House, 2008, which will be for publication with Palgrave Macmillan. He has also published multiple articles in top journals and contributed essays to several books. And most importantly, I think, Dr. Rankin is a recipient of the SUNY Chancellor's Award for Excellence in Teaching. It gives me great pleasure to...
Project my voice over the Rotary Club if necessary. You'll have to bear with me a little bit. I went to the Buffalo Bills Monday Night Football game last night. So, yeah, I was out in the cold and I was there quite late for the missed field goal try there at the end, so didn't get back until about 1 o'clock in the morning. And so I'll do my best with my voice here. It seems to be holding up thus far, so if it starts to wear down, you'll know why. It's a pleasure to speak once again with the League of Women Voters. I spoke with the League on campaign finance reform 4 years ago, just after the 2004 presidential election. Another election in which campaign spending records were shattered, despite the bipartisan Campaign Finance Reform Act of 2002. And of course, one of the major proponents of campaign finance reform was Senator John McCain, an author or co-author of the McCain-Feingold bill in the Senate. But despite the efforts of Senator McCain, the campaign spending escalated in 2004 to dramatic new levels, and it skyrocketed in 2008, totaling about $1 billion over the course of the presidential election. And the campaign finance topic is directly related to our discussion here today on the Electoral College. The amount of money spent and how it's been targeted in recent elections is directly connected to the Electoral College campaign and the strategy and how one becomes president-elect of the United States. And it's just one of the many concerns about how we elect the American president, which raises the question, is there a better way? And by the way, feel free to jump in with any questions or thoughts. I'll just go through my talk here in the beginning and then we'll open it up to a discussion in the end. But the Electoral College is a truly unique American process, and one that did have many people scratching their heads around the globe in 2000 and in this country as well. After all, hadn't Vice President Al Gore won the national popular vote, and how did Governor Bush eventually end up as the 43rd President of the United States, winning by about 500 votes in Florida? And after the recount and the discussion in the Supreme Court had ended, a lot of people were once again asking whether or not this was the best system after losing by 500,000 votes nationwide to Vice President Al Gore. And this wasn't the first time this had happened, although it had been about 100 years since it had happened before, in 1888 when Harrison beat Cleveland, or in 1876 when Hayes beat Tilden, in 1824 when Adams beat Jackson, and Jackson in fact had won both the majority, the plurality of the electoral and the popular vote in that election, but he didn't win enough. He didn't get to the threshold that was necessary for the Electoral College majority, so that the election ended up being decided in the House. which voted in favor of Adams, and Jackson wasn't very excited about that and actually would come back and win in the next election. But the point is, this has been a controversy at times throughout our history, this dispute and this question of the Electoral College and if it effectively represents the will of the people at times. And there were those elections in which we were very close to the loser of the popular vote winning the electoral vote as well. And 2004 almost pulled a reverse of what happened in 2000. Had John Kerry won 60,000 votes, approximately more, in Ohio, he would have done what George Bush had done in 2000, and that is become the President of the United States, losing the popular vote but winning the Electoral College margin. So we would have had two straight presidents elected who had lost the popular vote. It didn't work out that way, as it ended up. President Bush ended up winning re-election, extending his 271 bare minimum Electoral College majority that he received in 2000, with the bare majority being 270 to 286. So he did have a majority, a slightly higher majority there, and also did win the national popular vote majority in that election as well, 51 to 48%. So, you know, this has been, again, a recent question, but one if we look back to 1976, for example, we could have had a narrow victory for Gerald Ford over Jimmy Carter if a few states had flipped a certain way, despite him potentially losing the popular vote. And in 1960, with John F. Kennedy winning a narrow election by about 100,000 popular votes, you very easily could have had a situation again with him losing the popular vote but winning the electoral vote. He won that much more comfortably with over 300 electoral votes compared with Richard Nixon at 219. And then there were those elections in 1992 and 1996 in which candidate Clinton never captured a majority of the popular vote because of the presence of third-party candidate Ross Perot. And he ends up winning with convincing electoral margins because of the nature of the Electoral College, which is very unforgiving to third-party presidential candidates. Despite winning 90% of the popular vote in 1992 and 8% of the popular vote in 1996, Ross Perot didn't win a single electoral vote based on the winner-takes-all system in most states in the Electoral College. And this is the name of the game in American presidential elections. Third-party candidacies at best are relegated to the role of suggested spoilers. Just ask Ralph Nader, even Pat Buchanan, I guess, at some level, if you look at 2000 there. And the countless other candidates hoping to break through this winner-takes-all, state-by-state system that stacks the odds so heavily in favor of the much better financed major party candidates. On the other hand, despite its idiosyncrasies, this centuries-old system, established at a time when most women and men weren't allowed to vote, has allowed for history, whether it was providing for our nation's first Catholic president, John F. Kennedy, or our nation's first black president here with Barack Obama. And the same Electoral College was in place to potentially elect our first female president or vice president, or the nation's oldest first-term president, all in 2008, over 200 years since the ratification of the Constitution. Thus, the Electoral College has shaped and continues to shape our history, even as we gather here to ask if this unique American tradition is worth maintaining or one that's in significant need of transformation. And what's more American than that? To question the very mechanisms of our representative democracy, to ask if this is the best method of elected governance for we, the people. I recognize that the League of Women Voters is in favor of a mechanism that selects our president by a national popular vote.
You did your homework.
I've done my homework here. And I certainly understand many of the downsides to the Electoral College system as it's configured and utilized. After all, as it was mentioned, before I arrived at SUNY Fredonia in 1999, I resided in California. I grew up in California. I was educated in the University of California system. And both of those states have hardly been considered competitive in presidential elections for quite some time. New York voted by a 25-point margin for Obama in 2008, 17 points for Kerry in 2004, 25 points for Gore in 2000, and 18-point margins for Clinton. Can any of you tell me the last time a Republican won in New York State?
Reagan.
Ronald Reagan. 1984. The last Republican to win California, any trivia buffs here know who that was? George Herbert Walker Bush in 1988. And since 1988, California has voted quite reliably for Democrats, essentially double digits since 1992. California went by 11 points for Kerry. It went by 14 points for Obama.